The autumn rain drummed against the windshield as Min-jun wiped his grease-stained hands on his coveralls. His small auto repair shop sat on the outskirts of Seoul, a humble establishment that barely kept him and his 7-year-old daughter, Haiwan, afloat. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting harsh shadows across the cluttered workspace, filled with spare parts and half-finished repairs. At 32, Min-jun carried the weight of single parenthood with quiet determination. His wife had passed away 3 years ago, leaving him to navigate the challenges of raising Haiwan alone while struggling to maintain their modest livelihood. Every day was a careful balance between work and family, between dreams deferred and responsibilities embraced. The sound of a car door slamming outside caught his attention. Through the rain-streaked window, he saw a sleek black sedan parked at an awkward angle, its hazard lights blinking urgently. A woman in an expensive coat stood beside the vehicle, her phone pressed to her ear, frustration evident in her posture. Min-jun grabbed his umbrella and stepped into the downpour. As he approached, he noticed the flat tire and the woman's obvious distress. She was beautiful in an untouchable way, her designer clothes and perfect makeup suggesting a world far removed from his own. "Excuse me?" he called out in Korean, his voice gentle despite the rain. "Do you need help?" She looked up, startled by his presence. Her eyes were sharp, intelligent, but there was something vulnerable beneath the surface that made him want to help even more. Soo-jin ended her phone call abruptly, studying the man who had approached her. His clothes were simple, work-worn, but his eyes held genuine kindness. In her world of corporate sharks and calculated smiles, such sincerity was rare. "I have a flat tire," she said, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to having problems solved immediately. "My driver is stuck in traffic across the city." Min-jun nodded, already kneeling beside her car to examine the damage. The tire was completely flat, probably from the construction debris scattered along this stretch of road. He stood, rain dripping from his dark hair. "I can fix this for you," he offered. "My shop is right here. It won't take long." Soo-jin hesitated. She was CEO of Hansung Electronics, one of Korea's largest technology conglomerates. She didn't accept help from strangers, especially not from mechanics in run-down shops. But the rain was getting heavier, and her important dinner meeting was in 2 hours. "How much?" she asked, reaching for her purse. "Don't worry about payment right now," Min-jun replied, already moving toward his shop to get the necessary tools. "Let's just get you back on the road." His casual dismissal of money puzzled her. In her experience, everyone had a price. Everyone wanted something. She followed him into the warm, cluttered shop, her heels clicking against the concrete floor. The space smelled of motor oil and metal, foreign yet somehow comforting. A small desk in the corner held a child's drawing and a framed photograph of a little girl with pigtails. While Min-jun worked on her tire with practiced efficiency, Soo-jin found herself studying the modest shop with unexpected curiosity. The walls were lined with tools she couldn't name, and everything spoke of honest labor and careful maintenance. It was so different from her sterile corporate offices with their marble floors and floor-to-ceiling windows. "Is that your daughter?" she asked, nodding toward the photograph. Min-jun glanced up from where he was removing the damaged tire, a soft smile crossing his features. "Yes, that's Haiwan. She's 7. She's beautiful," Soo-jin said, and meant it. The child had her father's gentle eyes and an infectious smile that seemed to light up the small frame. "She's everything to me," Min-jun replied simply, returning his attention to the tire. His movements were methodical, confident, the result of years of experience. Soo-jin watched him work, noting the care he took with each step. In her world, everything was rushed, urgent, driven by quarterly reports and market demands. This man approached his work with a patience she had forgotten existed. "What happened to her mother?" The question slipped out before she could stop herself, too personal for a stranger. Min-jun's hands stilled for a moment. "Cancer," he said quietly. 3 years ago." The simple word carried a weight of grief that made Soo-jin's chest tighten. She thought of her own isolation, surrounded by people but truly known by none. This man had lost everything, and yet still offered kindness to strangers. 20 minutes later, Min-jun had the new tire mounted and balanced. Soo-jin watched him work with growing admiration for his skill and quiet competence. When he finished, he stood and wiped his hands on a rag, leaving smudges of grease on the worn fabric. "All done," he announced. "The tire should hold fine, but you might want to avoid construction zones for a while." Soo-jin reached for her wallet, but Min-jun shook his head. "Really? Don't worry about it. You looked like you needed help." "I insist on paying," she said, uncomfortable with the debt. In her world, favors always came with strings attached. "Then maybe you could buy Haewon a small toy sometime," he suggested with a gentle smile. "She loves anything with unicorns." The simple request touched something deep in Soo-jin's carefully guarded heart. When was the last time someone had asked her for something so innocent, so pure? She nodded, not trusting her voice. As she prepared to leave, Min-jun handed her his business card. It was simple, printed on cheap cardstock, but it represented his livelihood, his dedication to providing for his daughter. "In case you have any problems with the tire," he explained. Soo-jin took the card, their fingers brushing briefly. The contact sent an unexpected warmth through her, a reminder that beneath her corporate armor, she was still human, still capable of connection. She drove away without telling him her name, but his kindness lingered in her thoughts long after his shop disappeared in her rearview mirror. The next morning, Soo-jin sat in her corner office on the 42nd floor of the Hansung Tower, Seoul's skyline stretching endlessly beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. The city looked different from this height, reduced to patterns of light and shadow, traffic flowing like blood through concrete arteries. Her assistant, Ms. Park, briefed her on the day's schedule: board meetings, conference calls with international partners, a charity gala that evening. The routine felt more suffocating than usual. Each obligation, another link in the golden chain that bound her to this life. She found herself thinking about the mechanic's shop, about the genuine warmth in Min-jun's eyes when he spoke of his daughter. The contrast with her own sterile existence was stark. She had everything money could buy, yet felt emptier than ever. Meanwhile, across the city, Min-jun was helping Haewon get ready for school. Her uniform was carefully pressed, her backpack packed with homework and the lunch he had prepared before dawn. These morning rituals anchored his days, gave meaning to his struggles. "Appa, will you pick me up today?" Haewon asked, adjusting her small backpack. "Of course, sweetheart. I'll be waiting right outside your classroom." After dropping her off, Min-jun returned to his shop, where a stack of repair orders awaited his attention. Each job was a small victory, a step toward financial stability, toward the future he wanted to build for Haewon. He thought briefly of the elegant woman from yesterday, wondering if her tire was holding up, if she had made it to wherever she was going. 3 days later, Soo-jin found herself driving past Min-jun's shop again. She told herself it was coincidence, that she was simply taking a different route home from a client meeting. But when she saw the modest building with its hand-painted sign, she pulled into the small parking area. Min-jun emerged from beneath a car, surprise evident on his face when he recognized her. He wiped his hands on his coveralls, suddenly self-conscious about his appearance. "Is everything okay with the tire?" he asked, concern replacing surprise. "The tire is fine," Soo-jin replied, then hesitated. "I brought something for your daughter." She held out a small bag containing a stuffed unicorn, its silver horn catching the afternoon light. Min-jun's expression softened as he accepted the gift. "You didn't have to do this," he said, but his gratitude was evident. "You wouldn't let me pay for your help," Soo-jin replied. This seemed like a fair compromise. At that moment, a school bus pulled up outside, and Haiwan bounded off, her backpack bouncing with each step. She stopped short when she saw the elegant stranger talking to her father. "Haiwan, come meet the nice lady who brought you a present," Min-jun called. The little girl approached shyly, her eyes widening when she saw the unicorn. Her delighted squeal of joy brought an unexpected smile to Soo-jin's face, a genuine expression that transformed her features completely. "What do you say, sweetheart?" Min-jun prompted gently. "Thank you so much," Haiwan exclaimed, hugging the unicorn tightly. "She's beautiful. What's your name?" Soo-jin knelt to the child's level, her expensive suit forgotten. "I'm Soo-jin. What's your unicorn's name going to be?" "I think I'll call her Luna," Haiwan decided after careful consideration, holding the unicorn up to catch the fading sunlight. "Because she's silver like the moon." Soo-jin found herself genuinely charmed by the child's thoughtfulness. In her corporate world, decisions were made quickly, based on profit margins and market analysis. This innocent deliberation over a toy's name felt refreshingly pure. "That's a perfect name," Soo-jin agreed, surprised by how natural it felt to talk with the little girl. Min-jun watched the interaction with growing warmth. Haiwan had been shy around strangers since her mother's death, but something about Soo-jin put her at ease. Perhaps it was the woman's unexpected gentleness, so different from her initially formal demeanor. "Would you like to stay for dinner?" Min-jun found himself asking. "It's nothing fancy, just ramyeon and vegetables, but Haiwan would love to show you her drawings." Soo-jin hesitated. She had a business dinner scheduled, important clients who expected her presence. But looking at Haiwan's hopeful face and Min-jun's genuine invitation, the corporate obligations seemed suddenly meaningless. "I'd like that," she heard herself saying. They climbed the narrow stairs to the small apartment above the shop. The space was tiny but immaculately clean, filled with evidence of a father's love. Haiwan's artwork covering the refrigerator, carefully mended toys arranged on shelves, photographs documenting every milestone of the child's young life. Soo-jin felt like an intruder in this intimate space, her designer clothes and expensive accessories marking her as an outsider. Yet Min-jun and Haiwan welcomed her with such warmth that her discomfort gradually faded. Dinner was a revelation for Soo-jin. She couldn't remember the last time she had eaten a home-cooked meal, shared stories over simple food, laughed at a child's innocent observations about the world. Haiwan chattered about school, her friends, her dreams of becoming a veterinarian to help sick animals. "Appa says I'm good at taking care of things," Haiwan explained, carefully feeding a small piece of carrot to Luna the unicorn. "I helped him fix Mrs. Kim's cat when she hurt her paw." Min-jun smiled at his daughter's enthusiasm. "She has a gentle touch," he confirmed. "Animals trust her immediately." Soo-jin watched the easy affection between father and daughter with something approaching envy. Her own childhood had been filled with tutors and boarding schools, achievements and expectations, but little warmth. Her parents had loved her in their way, but it had been a distant, conditional love tied to success and social standing. After dinner, Haiwan insisted on showing Soo-jin her room, proudly displaying her collection of books and the small garden she was growing on the windowsill. Each possession was treasured, cared for with the attention that comes from having few material things but abundant love. "This is my favorite book," Haiwan said, pulling out a worn copy of fairy tales. "Appa reads it to me every night before bed." Soo-jin touched the book's soft cover, imagining the countless evenings of shared stories, the comfort of routine and unconditional love. Her own penthouse apartment was filled with expensive art and designer furniture, but it had never felt like home the way this small space did. As the evening progressed, Soo-jin found herself relaxing in ways she hadn't experienced in years. Min-jun was an attentive host, ensuring her comfort without being obsequious. His conversation was thoughtful, his observations about life shaped by genuine experience rather than corporate strategy. "You're very good with her," Min-jun observed, as Hae-won fell asleep in Soo-jin's lap while they watched a children's movie. "I don't have much experience with children," Soo-jin admitted, carefully stroking the little girl's hair. "My life doesn't really include them." "What does your life include?" Min-jun asked gently, sensing the loneliness beneath her polished exterior. Soo-jin considered the question. "Meetings, mostly. Reports, decisions, obligations." She paused, looking down at the sleeping child. "I can't remember the last time I felt this peaceful." Min-jun studied her profile in the soft lamplight, noting the vulnerability she rarely allowed others to see. "What do you do for work?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Soo-jin knew that revealing her identity would change everything, would introduce complications and assumptions that would destroy this fragile connection. But looking into Min-jun's honest eyes, she couldn't bring herself to lie. "I work in business," she said carefully. "Management." It wasn't technically a lie, though it was far from the complete truth. Min-jun nodded, accepting her vague answer without pressing for details. His respect for her privacy touched her deeply, another contrast with her usual world where everyone wanted something from her. Over the following weeks, Soo-jin found excuses to visit the shop. Sometimes she brought small gifts for Hae-won, other times she simply stopped by to chat with Min-jun during his lunch break. Each visit deepened their connection, built trust between two people from vastly different worlds. Min-jun began to look forward to her appearances, the way her presence brightened his modest shop. She was intelligent and thoughtful, asking genuine questions about his work, listening to his stories about Hae-won with real interest. Gradually, her formal demeanor softened, revealing glimpses of the woman beneath the professional facade. Soo-jin, meanwhile, found herself scheduling meetings in different parts of the city just to have reasons to drive past his neighborhood. The corporate world that had once defined her began to feel increasingly hollow. Board meetings dragged on endlessly, filled with posturing and politics that seemed meaningless compared to Min-jun's honest work and Hae-won's innocent joy. One afternoon, she arrived to find Min-jun struggling with a particularly difficult repair, frustration evident in his movements. Without thinking, she rolled up her sleeves and asked how she could help. "You'll ruin your clothes," he protested, but she was already kneeling beside him, following his instructions to hold a flashlight steady while he worked. Working together in the cramped space beneath the car, their hands occasionally brushing as they passed tools, Soo-jin felt more alive than she had in years. The simple act of being useful, of contributing to something tangible and immediate, filled a void she hadn't realized existed. The growing intimacy between them couldn't remain hidden forever. Soo-jin's assistant began asking questions about her frequent absences from the office, her distracted behavior during important meetings. The board members noticed her lack of focus on quarterly projections, her unusual interest in employee welfare programs. Meanwhile, Min-jun's neighbors started commenting on the expensive car that appeared regularly outside his shop, the well-dressed woman who seemed so out of place in their working-class neighborhood. Some whispered warnings about rich women who played with poor men's hearts for entertainment. The tension came to a head on a rainy Thursday evening. Soo-jin had stayed late at the shop, helping Min-jun with paperwork while Hae-won did homework at the small desk. The domestic scene felt so natural, so right, that neither of them noticed how close they had grown until Min-jun looked up from an invoice to find Soo-jin watching him with undisguised affection. "Soo-jin," he said softly, her name a question and a prayer. She leaned toward him, drawn by an attraction that transcended logic or social boundaries. Their lips met in a kiss that was gentle, tentative, filled with weeks of suppressed longing. For a moment, the differences between their worlds disappeared, leaving only two people who had found unexpected love. The sound of Hae-won's pencil dropping broke the spell. They separated quickly, both aware that they had crossed a line that would change everything between them. I should go, Soo-jin whispered, gathering her things with trembling hands. Min-jun wanted to stop her, to explain the feelings that had been growing in his heart. But the words wouldn't come. He watched her leave, knowing that tomorrow would bring complications neither of them was prepared to face. The next morning brought crisis. Soo-jin's driver, concerned about her recent behavior, had followed her to the shop and reported back to her head of security. By noon, her assistant had compiled a full report on Min-jun, his financial struggles, his wife's medical debts, his daughter's needs. The board of directors called an emergency meeting. Soo-jin sat at the head of the polished conference table, facing 12 men in expensive suits who questioned her judgment, her priorities, her fitness to lead the company. This association is inappropriate, declared Chairman Lee, her father's oldest friend and her most vocal critic. A woman in your position cannot be seen with a common mechanic. Think of the company's reputation. Think of your own reputation, added another board member. The media will have a field day if this becomes public. Soo-jin listened to their concerns with growing anger. These men, who had never known real hardship or genuine love, were telling her how to live her life. They spoke of Min-jun as if he were somehow less worthy because he worked with his hands, because he chose family over profit. The man is obviously after your money, Chairman Lee continued. Men like him always are. End this foolishness before it destroys everything your father built. Meanwhile, across the city, Min-jun was dealing with his own crisis. A customer had recognized Soo-jin from a business magazine and revealed her true identity. The CEO of Hansung Electronics had been visiting his shop, eating dinner in his modest apartment, kissing him in the shadows of his workspace. The revelation hit him like a physical blow. Everything made sense now. Her expensive clothes, her refined manner, her reluctance to discuss her work. She was one of the most powerful women in Korea, and he was nobody. That evening, Soo-jin arrived at the shop to find Min-jun waiting for her, his expression carefully neutral. Hae-won was nowhere to be seen, probably upstairs doing homework, unaware of the storm about to break over their small family. I know who you are, Min-jun said without preamble. Lee Soo-jin, CEO of Hansung Electronics. Soo-jin's heart sank. She had dreaded this moment, knowing it would change everything between them. I wanted to tell you, she began, but he held up a hand to stop her. Why? He asked, his voice heavy with hurt. Why did you come here? Why did you let me fall in love with you? The word love hung between them like a bridge neither could cross. Soo-jin felt tears threatening, a display of emotion she hadn't allowed herself in years. Because with you I could be myself, she whispered. Not the CEO, not the heiress, just me. But that's not who you really are, is it? Min-jun replied, gesturing to the modest shop around them. This isn't your world. I'm not your equal. I can't give you anything you don't already have. You gave me everything, Soo-jin said, her voice breaking. You gave me peace, joy, a reason to smile. You and Hae-won showed me what love really looks like. Min-jun turned away, unable to bear the pain in her eyes. My daughter is already attached to you. She talks about you constantly, draws pictures of the three of us together. How do I explain to a 7-year-old that fairy tales don't come true? The accusation cut deep because it was true. Soo-jin had allowed herself to play house, to pretend that love could conquer the vast differences between their lives. But reality was intruding now, demanding choices that would hurt everyone involved. The following weeks were agony for both of them. Soo-jin threw herself into work, approving mergers and acquisitions with mechanical precision, while her heart remained in a small auto repair shop across the city. She attended charity galas and business dinners, smiling for photographers while dying inside. Min-jun focused on Hae-won and his work, but the joy had gone out of both. His daughter asked repeatedly when Soo-jin would visit again, why Luna the unicorn seemed sad without her friend. He had no answers that wouldn't break a little girl's heart. The turning point came when Hae-won fell ill with pneumonia. Min-jun sat beside her hospital bed, watching his daughter struggle to breathe, feeling helpless and alone. The medical bills were mounting, his insurance inadequate for the specialized care she needed. In desperation, he called the one person he knew could help, the woman he had pushed away to protect his pride and her reputation. Soo-jin arrived within an hour, still in her business suit from a board meeting she had abandoned mid-sentence. She took one look at Hae-won's pale face and made a decision that would change all their lives. Money was transferred, specialists were consulted, the best pediatric care in Seoul was arranged with a single phone call. "Why?" Min-jun asked as they sat in the hospital corridor, waiting for news from the doctors. "Because I love her," Soo-jin replied simply. "Because I love you both. And love means putting the people you care about before everything else." When Hae-won recovered, she hugged Soo-jin tightly and whispered, "I knew you'd come back. Luna told me you would." Looking into the child's trusting eyes, Soo-jin knew she could never walk away again. Some things were worth fighting for, worth risking everything to protect. Love was one of them.